Good evening. This is Mason Magsig recording my interview here of someone of a different race. And so, who do I have in front of me?
Hi, my name's Brian.
And Brian, do I have your consent to film this interview today?
Of course.
Perfect. So to start off, Brian, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small farming town just an hour south of here. It's called Corcoran, California, about 30 minutes south of Hanford, about 30 minutes west of Tulare. Yeah.
Now, tell me about the neighborhood you grew up in.
So my neighborhood that I grew up in specifically was actually a lot nicer compared to the other neighborhoods in the city of Corcoran. I was quite fortunate that my parents were well off, and we had a nice, massive house, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a few different types of cars, which was nice to grow up with. But compared to the rest of the community, being pretty impoverished as a whole and farming, usually farm laborers.
Awesome. What was school like for you?
So school for me, I did the public school system up until high school when we decided that the school system in Corcoran was subpar. So my parents decided to send me to a Christian school in Visalia, Central Valley Christian. And I was blessed for that. And if they would have been able to do it again and restart with my sister, they would have sent us there from the very beginning. Yeah.
Did you enjoy where you grew up?
Yes. Just because it was such a small town, so my neighborhood kids were all alike. But I didn't really have any friends outside of the neighborhood like that per se, so I wasn't sure how their experience was compared to mine. But mine was very great.
Now, what did you guys do growing up with your friends?
So we would go riding into the fields, going and making like mounds and tracks in the dirt, in the not the abandoned fields, but the empty fields at the time. Riding bikes, we'd go shooting down the street from the house because our neighborhood was right up against farmland, so we'd be able to go out and shoot right off, go hunting squirrels and coyotes, things like that, and then playing in the streets as well because there was very little traffic besides parents coming home from work. But yeah.
Awesome. Now tell me about the stores near you where you grew up.
So the stores, I would probably say are relative to like downtown Fresno. They're not bad, but they're not good. They're usually owned by local people, or if they come from out of town and they own them. Not too many big chains are in Corcoran, besides like McDonald's and Taco Bell, and now I think there's a Starbucks going in just recently. But besides that, it was pretty small, and I don't want to say the town is run down, but it's not comparing it to like say Clovis, there is no match there.
Got it. Kind of transitioning into, health access. As a minority, tell me about, your healthcare situation. Have you had access to, pretty good Medi-Cal and all that good stuff, or has it been a little bit different because you might be a different race than others?
So for me personally, I don't qualify for Medi-Cal. I am a healthcare professional myself, so I have pretty good insurance. And even as a child, my parents were able to afford great insurance for us, even though they are entrepreneurs as well and self-insured. Our insurance was a little higher than, per se, people who are on Medi-Cal who get it for free or a very low copay. So on that end, our things were a little bit more pricey if I were to get hurt, but we were thankful enough to afford it. And yeah.
Awesome. So do you use any cultural or traditional medical care?
I do not know. I stick to the Western medicine aspect as well. Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. So what is your highest level of education?
So right now I'm pursuing a medical degree. I'm a 4th-year medical student and pharmacy student. So I was able to go to a private university for my undergrad in San Diego, which was fortunate enough. Pretty hefty price tag, but again, we were fortunate enough to be able to afford that. And then I came back to the Valley to do medical school and pharmacy school. And personally, I am paying that for myself with government loans, but hopefully I can attend a local hospital to where I can work for 10 years or so and they get that forgiven.
Awesome. Now, what is your current job then?
Right now, I am a student, so I'm doing rotations. So I've done rotations between Valley Children's, sorry, not Valley Children's, St. Agnes, CRMC, CCMC, and CCI. So right now I'm not bringing any money in, but I'm not losing any money either.
Awesome. Now, what about your parents? What are their highest level of education?
Both of my parents have some college.
Got it.
But not continuing on past that.
Understood. Now, have you ever felt any experience of like any barriers when it came to employment just because of your race?
Not at all. With the standards that California has put in, a little too extreme in my opinion, that favor minorities over anybody else, I think that creates an unfair playground. Which just because, say, I'm brown and you're white doesn't mean I'm better than you or anyone's better than each other. It depends on what's up in your head and how we put your knowledge to it. Yes, some people start behind the starting line and some start ahead of it, but ultimately the goal is the same. It just depends on how much you have to work and what cards you've been played or dealt with, so you have to play with.
For sure. Now, regarding your ethnicity, how do you identify yourself?
So I was adopted. My mom and dad are both Portuguese and Dutch. I am Portuguese and Hispanic, well, Mexican. But I personally, growing up in a Dutch and Portuguese household, I consider myself Dutch and Portuguese fully because that's the traditions that I was raised in.
Awesome. Now, what are the thoughts and feelings you have towards your ethnic group?
It's very well divided, especially in today's time, to the left and to the right. I can see what they're talking about on the left about humanity, but sometimes you just got to pick up your boots and start working, quit asking for handouts. But on the other side, those who actually have come here legally and have waited in line, like my grandparents did when they were coming here during World War II, waited in line even when there was an ongoing war to get in here correctly and right, and then establish their American dream, which they were able to do. Which everyone can do. Yes, there is some issues with the system itself that needs to be fixed, but ultimately, if you're here illegally, like a majority of my ethnic race, they need to realize that there is consequences for that. They are breaking the law, and they will be deported if they're not doing it correctly. I mean, yes, I've had somewhat of a better start than they did, but I know multiple other different types of Hispanics and Latinos and up and down the from Southern America, up and down Central America, who live here and are in the same school as I am, and they started off with a lot less, and they worked their way to get here. So, in a wraps, I would think that a majority of them are expecting a free handout, which is asinine.
So now, what are your thoughts and feelings towards the dominant culture? Because we are in a more heavily white society, some would say.
Well, so when I go on mission trips, I don't expect the different types of people that I run into to have to accommodate me and myself. Well, when you come to America, you're expected to assimilate into the culture that's already been established here for years and decades, if not that, and centuries. So yes, it's great to bring your cultural background. I mean, shoot, there's great food and great traditions that come with that as well. But you also have to expect that the local population that was here before, even the Native Americans, we expect you need to assimilate to fit one big melting pot together instead of branching out and doing violent crimes against one group and the other because you don't agree. We need to find a great middle ground to where that can all melt together.
So, what do you consider your primary language?
English.
Now, did you have any difficulty learning to read or write the English language?
Not at all.
Got it. Alrighty. What illegal activities, if any, were present in your neighborhood where you grew up?
The only thing that I can remember is we had a burglary once, but that was taken care of by the Corcoran police, and ever since then we've never had any other issues.
Got it. Now, when it comes to the opportunities for employment, what was that looking like in your neighborhood?
A majority of the neighbors in my neighborhood either owned or operated their own farming business or their own business, like my parents as well. We usually had employees.
Awesome. Did you consider school easy or difficult for you?
Well, personally for me, I think it was a little difficult because I had dyslexia, but that's not related to race or ethnicity.
Got it. Now, when it comes to people, were you ever discouraged that made you kind of want to prevent going into, in your case, the medical field?
The only thing that I felt intimidated by was the amount of a certain race, from like Eastern China or any of that. Race is just a very abundance in the medical community, or Indian. So it is a little intimidating trying to keep up, because I do know that they very much value intelligence and book knowledge. Whereas for me, I felt like I needed to work a little harder to get to that point to where they're at.
Got it. So kind of going into a different topic, have you ever experienced racism?
Personally, no. I've not ever experienced racism.
Got it.
You know what, actually, I do recall one time. It was in 2016, the night of the election when Trump won. I had a white woman, a blonde white woman, come up to me from school when I was in college, telling me I was a race traitor. And I asked her where I was from, and she assumed that I was from Costa Rica or Puerto Rico, which is not true.
I'm sorry to hear that. So how did you deal with that discrimination?
Personally, I just laughed it off because I think it was ridiculous, and I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like a majority of the people who follow that type of rule of law don't really know what they're talking about. But yeah.
Now, has that happened since? Because you are, more right wing. Do you feel like you're often assumed to think one way because of your race?
I haven't experienced anything since then. No.
Got it. So when it comes to, society today, do you feel like there's any steps that society needs to take to get to a good spot where we're treating everyone fairly? What does that look like to you?
To me, I think it looks like everyone needs to just stop being so mad at each other and identifying one way or another. I mean, if you're not bothering me, I'm not going to bother you. I don't care if you're gay, straight, purple, or yellow. It doesn't really matter. As long as you don't push your values on me, I'm not pushing mine on you. You vote the way you want to be heard, and if you win, then great. If you don't, then you don't. But you just move on with it. I think there was a big dividing line ever since like 2008, and it wasn't due to race. It was due to policy and procedures that one group wanted to look at versus another group, and that's how it's been for decades since the Revolutionary War, and even the Civil War. So, to me, just respecting everybody's opinion, be treated the way you want to be treated, and stop categorizing one race as, oh, they're bad, or they're illegal, or they're bad because they're white, they only want to deport everybody. It's just, if everyone realizes that we have a rule of law for a reason, then, and we follow the rule of law, and stop trying to gerrymander districts or even elections per se, and make everything just fair right off the bat, then everyone has a voice, everyone has one vote, and you just have to deal with the results of that.
Got it. So are you involved in any social change groups or clubs related to your identity?
I am not, no.
Got it. Were there any, opportunities or clubs in college or in high school that were kind of revolved around race?
Well, I mean, in college there was like the Chinese Association and the Mexican American clubs and stuff like that, but I was never involved in any of those.
Gotcha. So now that we have about a minute left here, kind of wrapping up, what would you say is the biggest problem when you think of race in society? What comes to mind for you?
Well, the two biggest races are probably going to be between white and Latino, and especially now with the border issue going on in Texas, I think that needs to be resolved by the American government, and hopefully it will be. After the next election will be a main focus to figure out what you're going to do and try to overhaul the whole system, so that way people can come legally and respect everyone's beliefs.
Got it. So last question. As a Hispanic, what do you feel? What's your take on Latinx and versus Latino and Latina? How does that make you feel?
I mean, it's just the newer generation. I mean, I'm not that old, but I mean, I'm a millennial, but still, I think that's a little ridiculous. Like, I mean, if you want to go for it, use it, but I'm going to continue doing mine. I mean, if you're a guy, I'm going to give you a he and a him, and if you're a girl, you're a she and a he, or a she and a her.
Got it.
No they, them, or anything like that, or Latinx. It's just Latino or Latina. I mean, there's no offensiveness to that, especially when it comes from a love language like Spanish, where they personalize the language to a female or to a male pronoun.
Understood. Alrighty. Thank you so much for your time, Brian.
Of course, thank you.